The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm one of your hosts, Cheryl Hentz, along with former Oshkosh Mayor and City Councilwoman Melanie Bloechl. On this edition, our guest is County Board Supervisor Tom Pech Jr. Tom represents District 12, which covers part of the City of Oshkosh and then part of the town of Oshkosh, too, correct? Mm-hmm. Tom also serves on the Aviation Committee, of which you are the Secretary.
Correct.
The Board of Health, the Human Services Board, and the Information Systems Committee.
Secretary of that one also.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And thanks very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I guess one of the first things that I wanted to chat about is obviously budget issues. It's that time of year again when cities, school boards, counties, states start looking at budgetary items. And we're taping this on October 9th, of course, but as of today, I don't believe the county's held any budget hearings yet. Have you seen a budget book, or?
The only budgets that I have seen would be the committees that I serve on. Okay. And we have not seen the budget books. From what I understand, the books are to be delivered to us or will be printed, I think, October 14th. And then the budget hearing is the first week of November. I don't have my calendar here, but it's
they'll
sometime.
find you, Tom. They'll know where to get you.
I'm sure they will. So basically, I understand we'll have about 2 to 3 weeks to review them and everything else. But what I'm hearing is that there's no tax increase in essence in the levy, but that still does not mean that, we all know that you can say there's no tax increase because the levy's not going up, but because your valuation goes up, there still will be possibly something like that. But from what I understand, the county executive is coming in with a zero increase budget. So,
how big is the county budget?
I think last year it was around $110, $115 million.
Pretty sizable.
Yeah.
Well, and the county, I think a lot of the things that folks don't understand about the county, it's such a different animal from any other local municipal government representation. You guys and gals that are on the county board are responsible for so many things that touch people's lives, social services, jail, health services. I mean, you cover so much, airport services. The list goes on and on and on, and I don't think people really realize the depth to what you delve into with this kind of budget and the kind of constraints that are placed on you by the state government.
Right.
I mean, all this stuff is heaped on you, and you shall provide these services via mandates, but there's no money coming in to help you out with this stuff.
You're talking about mandates, and this was it's kind of funny you mentioned that.
The envelope.
And I'm not doing this as a prop, but since you brought it up. But basically, what happened is at our last Human Services meeting, Mark Quan, at a meeting previous to this, I asked Mark. I said, could you pull together the state mandates? And then the funding that the state provides, in essence, what they tell us to do, and then the money that follows with them. Well, this is the packet that they gave us of state mandates, and it's everything from child support, mental health, public health, as you mentioned, youth and family services, and then the biggie here is aging and long-term support.
Sure. And are there dollars attached to that?
There's no dollars that are attached to this, but one of the things that I was able to pull out was that in for an example, child welfare services, which is basically child abuse, that type of thing, but then also what falls into child welfare is juvenile services, okay? If we have juveniles that get into trouble or whatever. Basically, comparing 1993 to 2002, the child welfare budget, the tax levy, increased $4.5 million over that period of time, which is a 110% increase. Well, over that time, the expenses increased 88%, but then the revenues, revenues are basically the things that we get from the feds and the state, revenues increased 46%.
Wow.
So
it's nice to know they're
now,
keeping up, isn't it?
yeah, but now remember, who are the big spenders?
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Who are the big spenders?
Thank you.
Now, and one of the things that this leads to is, we consistently hear people say, "Don't raise my taxes." We had the thing about property tax freeze. We had all of this. Okay, now the problem with that, it's bumper sticker politics. Okay, now I'm not saying that we just run out cash checks and spend money on everything, but everybody says, no new taxes, don't raise taxes. They say tough on crime. They say, we want you to make sure that you take care. When these juvenile kids screw up, we want to make sure that they're held accountable. Okay,
Right.
well, part of that is, well, in order to hold them accountable, now we have to put them into shelter care or into correctional care or something else like that. So now, at one point, society says, we want you to hold these kids accountable. We want you to take care of them. But now, when it comes time to pay the bill, no, you can't do that.
Right.
So people have to understand that one of the things that they really need to look at is, instead of using the word taxes, one of the things maybe what we need to do is that replace taxes with services, because it's taxes that pay for the services that we do. Case in point, we just saw that the Winnebago County Highway Department is talking about restricting their snowplow hours. Okay, now that's a service, people, and I'm sure people are up in arms about that. I haven't gotten any calls yet, but somebody's going to say, you got to plow my streets. You got to plow the roads.
And if they
Right.
haven't been keeping up on it yet, wait until the first snowfall that's significant, and then the phone will be ringing.
Right. So the thing is that you got to look at what we need to remember is that part of living in the society that we live in, taxes are inevitable, because taxes are what allows government to provide the services. No matter who it is, whether it's from the far right of the spectrum to the far left of the spectrum, everyone wants some service out of the government. And the thing is it's always easy to cut someone else's.
Exactly.
Cut that. Well, why? It doesn't affect me. But boy, if all of a sudden, you have an elderly mother who's going to need long-term care, or you have a child who is starting to maybe get, a little rowdy or things like that, then you're going to want government to step in and help you out and do that. So it's a tough balancing act. Am I asking for sorrow? No, I'm not. I knew what was going on when I got into this. But what I am asking is that people understand both sides of the equation.
Well, become educated as to the process that you're making decisions at the behest of your constituency. I think what every representative or anybody who's ever done this job is asking that people take responsibility and educate themselves as to what's going on, so that you can have a rational discussion with them as to what you're up against, and then have people give you some valid input. Just saying, I don't want that. Well, okay, but we've been mandated to provide services. We don't have a choice. When the state comes down and says, thou shalt do this, the city, the county, the schools don't have an opportunity to say, you know what, we don't want to.
Oh, but no, remember, there was mandate relief.
Yeah, well, have you seen it though, Tom? Because I'm still waiting for that.
Well, but the thing is the other one is I know what's going to happen is mandate relief. It's going to be the same Madison game that's always played, and I do respect the people down in Madison. They have a tough job, as all elected representatives do. But what's going to happen is, I know what's going to happen with mandated relief is it's going to get turned around. It's the same thing that the property tax thing got turned around, that we're going to be the big spenders. What's going to happen with mandate relief is that the counties and the municipalities are going to go to the state and say, okay, here's the list of mandates that we would like relief from. Well, what's going to happen down in Madison then is they're going to turn around, they're going to go, oh my gosh, Winnebago County said that they're not going to do this. They're the big bad ogres.
So you no longer have aging services for your grandmother. But what I would like to know, though, Tom, in your opinion, when you see lists, and you gave examples of children's services and support services for family, that's a sweeping category. There is so much underneath that umbrella. You have the courts and all of these things that fall underneath that really huge umbrella. Is there not some of this stuff that the county has been mandated and made responsible for that really does not belong under the county umbrella, that the state really should be taking back and, you know, taking responsibility for and taking a better control of budgetarily as well as, you know, services?
I would make the argument that the court system is.
And I would agree with that.
Because they're state employees.
Basically, yes, there's county ordinances that do go through the court system and everything else like that. But you know, most of the the laws are at the state level.
Well, you're looking to take in state prisoners as well, which I find interesting, which we can
okay,
go into later.
let's put that in the parking lot for right now, and then we'll come back later on.
We'll move into another area.
You know, maybe we'll need to go 2 hours instead of an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's what confuses me though about the courts, is that the district attorneys and the, I don't know about the employees so much, but the district attorney and the assistant DAs, they are considered state employees,
right.
and yet we have a county committee that oversees them.
They oversee the office. The salaries are the state, but then the support personnel and the actual facility is ours.
But that's
See,
where all the
that's
where we
expenses.
pay.
Right, and that's
you know,
what confuses me.
Okay, you've got bricks and mortar that costs
Right.
us a ton of money because you've got utilities and phones and
Right.
and then you've got all the support staff because God knows you need a ton of people there. I mean, process servers, secretaries, assistant, you name it.
Office supplies,
Office
everything
supplies,
else.
all the major equipment, all the infrastructure there. That's where all the bulk of the expense goes. So I guess what I'm saying is that why hasn't the state, and I think I probably know this answer already, but in your opinion, I think everyone agrees that this is really the state's baby, the courts. Even certain legislators, our local legislators, are saying, you know, maybe the courts we should take back, the judicial system. Why aren't they jumping on this? Why are they not doing something for the local municipalities? Go ahead, Tom, you can answer that because I'm biting the inside of my cheek so I don't say it.
Okay, my friends, the few friends I have left in Madison are going to leave me now.
I have none, so if
Probably
you want me
because
to say it.
because the thing is, this is one of the is I always believe in is, and I've said this since I first got on the board. I'm going to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Okay, brutally honest. I'm going to tell you, coming out of a politician, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Okay.
And what's happening is we have that mentality of no new taxes. We are not going to raise your taxes. We are going to hold the line on spending. We're going to do this because if they do what you're asking to do and what we're basically discussing here, all of a sudden then they're the ones that have to put it on their dime. Then they're the ones that are responsible for it. You know, there's a certain representative from this area who often tells me that it is up to the counties to determine what level of services they want to provide and then fund it. Okay, all well and good. If that is where you're going to end the argument, terrific. I can live with that, great. But what did we have in the last budget session? We said, okay, is what we got is that they added something to that. It's up to the counties to determine what they want to fund. And oh, by the way, Big Brother is going to tell you that you cannot increase the property tax to cover that. At the same time, they say, here's the things you need to do.
Yeah.
Who is that representative, by the way?
It's Greg Underheim.
You know, and
Am I lying? It's Greg. I know it's Greg because I've had this discussion.
We've had that discussion many times, you know, and I've said to him, look, and I would say this to anybody in Madison, if you're going to tell me to do something, then give me the money to do it. And be honest enough with the people to say, you know, that don't make me out to be the bad guy. And you used to be on the city, and I know the same thing happened to you.
Oh,
it's the old expression about things rolling downhill. Well, the unfortunate thing is the municipalities and the local governments and county government, they're the ones that are at the bottom of the hill.
And
we're the ones that have
to lose by
With your
shared revenues being cut? Do you have
He probably
some
doesn't
idea
even
yet?
have it
Or
yet.
Couldn't give you a number. I mean, it has been, you know, it's like one of the, is that we had a recent Human Services meeting, and Mark Quam, basically it was, well, now the state budget that just passed, well, over here it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. Over here it was a little worse than we thought it was, and okay, Madison, I'll give you this one. But there were a couple of things that actually turned out a little better. But overall, yeah, we're going to lose something. I don't know what it is, but you know, we're not the ones that plugged a hole with tobacco money and everything else. And you know, and I can't go and take money out of this account and put it in here and say, oh, now look, I patched up a budget deficit, because you know, we have to pass this budget. Yes, at the end of the year, there are the resolutions that come forward. Somebody was over budget in a certain area. Human services, you see that. Child caring institutions, you know, you go into a budget for human services like that, and you basically, you're winging it. You look at history and you say, okay, let's see, over the past 10 years we've had this many children going through this program. Okay, so based on this, well, we're going to assume that there's this many that are going to go through. Okay, all it takes is a couple of more, and all of a sudden your budget goes
right out the window.
Right out the window goes, everything comes forward. And, you know, or the other one is you plan on being able to divert this child through a lesser restrictive type thing. All of a sudden that child's up at Lincoln Hills, and oh, by the way, who sets the rates for Lincoln Hills?
The state.
And, you know, they raise the rates there, but at the same time, the BCA, they don't raise that and everything else. The state goes out and writes waivers.
BCA, what does that mean?
Basic county allowance, or, you know.
Which means they raise the rate as to what it's costing you to send a child to this reformatory, quote-unquote, situation. And the state, who really is responsible for these kids at some point, doesn't reimburse you the same amount of money that it costs to send you.
BCA has been pretty much flat for this pretty much 10-year period. It's about $600 and some thousand. So,
how much does it cost to send one kid to someplace like Lincoln?
The figure that I usually hear is about $40,000 to $50,000 for a year. You know, now,
Yikes.
and okay, now, and that gets to another point. Okay, now, you know, let's all put our liberal hats on now. Okay.
That might be a little harder for me.
But what I'm getting at is getting back to one of the comments I made earlier about people saying, you got to get tough on these kids. You got to send them away. You got to lock them up. Okay. Well, the thing that we do is okay, all right, I'm going to throw the kid away. Okay, great. Everybody says, yeah, well, here's the money, here's the check to do it. Okay, but now, what about giving me, if we come forward, and we saw it many years ago at the federal level when we talked about midnight basketball leagues, okay? And when when that proposal came forward, people said, "Ah, we can't support that. We can't fund it. That's you know, social spending. We can't do that." Well, the thing is maybe if you take a little money and put it into a program over here and divert these children, give them something when they first, you know, the way I look at it, the way I describe it is, you have that child who's on a fence, and he's starting to teeter one way or the other. You know, before he falls over this way, let's give him a push back this way and go there. Now, if we took that $50,000 and invested it into juvenile programs, into the, you know, and I'm bringing in the schools into this, if we'd invested into the schools, into some early interventional programs, giving these children something to do rather than just going out and starting to get in trouble, and get involved with them when they first start getting in trouble. Granted, you're not going to save them all, but how much would we be ahead? It's the proverbial, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You know, penny wise, pound foolish. You know, those are the types of things that we need to take a look at. But there's a lot of, you know, is that it's like I say, those programs people look at as, no, we can't do that. That's, you know, that's liberal, fuzzy, social type things. We can't do that. But boy, when it comes time to throw them away and lock up the key, boy, we'll do that.
See, I think we should invest our money in boot camps. I think we kick the crap out of some of these little snot-nosed brats. We just take all the snot right out of them.
Well, you know,
really, and you could do it at a more local level, like when the teachers see that they're going the wrong way. Okay, instead of going to the conventional school, we like to call it the at-risk school now, but now it's Bobby's boot camp. You bet. Or Bubba's, I don't know.
You know, and you know, the thing is it comes down to accountability and everything else, and it's like, okay, if I'm going to be held accountable for this and the results, then give me the tools to do it, and don't tie my hands to do it. Don't tie my hands so I can't do it. and
you
be
guys-
honest with people.
You guys at the county have always presented a balanced budget every year.
Well, we have to.
Exactly, because we are mandated to do such
Correct.
statutorily. The state, however, does not have that same institutional governance
Correct.
over itself. They do not have to present a balanced budget, and many times they don't even present a timely budget so that the municipalities know what the reimbursables are going to be, which plays a big part in knowing where your revenue flow is going to be, you know, where your caps are going to be, because this is all floating out there. Your bond rating has been really top-notch. I mean, you guys have a great bond rate. You've been very responsible in not only delivering services, but at a rate and in a timely fashion. And yet, with the county doing as well, I mean, when you start comparing Winnebago County with bond rates and the level of services that we provide here in Winnebago County to some of the other counties around, why is it that the Northwestern feels compelled to beat the living daylights out of you guys, and they leave the city council alone, they leave, you know, all this other stuff is left alone, but the county board seems to be a target? And is it that they maybe don't understand, again, the level of service that you provide, or?
I think they understand that. I think there's some personalities involved in that.
So more politics.
There might be some politics, but I think there's some personalities. The chairman of the board likes to kick the Northwestern, okay?
I'm
And
taking a little fun at them myself.
And I think what happens is the Northwestern takes a shot at the county, and then certain members of the county board take a shot at the Northwestern, and it's a tit for tat, and it's just, you know, well, okay, you know, it's that type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's up to the news media to print the news. Okay, has this county done some dumb things? Yeah. I'm not going to argue that. I can't think of any right now, but you know.
Good answer.
But no, but it's like any governmental entity. You know, you look back, you do something, and you look back in retrospect, and you go, boy, you know, maybe we should have, you know, looked at it differently. Okay, but you know, if you don't want it printed, you know, Mark Twain once said, if you don't want it printed, don't do it. So I don't know what it is and exactly why it is, but Northwestern's always been nice to me. But
I guess the reason that I bring that up is because of that feeling, and you get that feeling that there is a strong dislike, and I use that word because, you know, we are on public access, that strong displeasure between the two entities, the Northwestern and the county, that everything good that you could possibly accomplish is somehow muted. I mean, I think that is a disservice to the constituents of Winnebago County, because there are some good things that have been done. There are some great success stories. It is not appropriate not to educate and inform people about the good stuff too.
yeah, I think you know, the Northwestern has done a couple of things that says, hey, you know, you guys did a good job on this or whatever.
They throw you a bone every once in a while.
But to answer your question, I really don't know exactly why it is. You know, every year the resolution comes up, again, another state mandate, that we have to publish meeting proceedings, okay? And there's certain county board members that make it their, you know, they have to get their 2 cents in, and basically they take their shot at the Northwestern, you know, and basically say, well, you know, that, you know, isn't there another paper or whatever that we can use, or, you know, the way they treat us and all the stories that they do about us, you know, they got to get their shots in and everything else. And, you know, I've often said, and Melanie, I know this goes back to some of the things when you were on the city council, you and I didn't always agree on everything.
Oh, yeah.
No. I didn't necessarily like your opinion, you necessarily didn't like my opinion, but the thing is that the two of us,
That's the beauty of democracy.
but at the end of the day, at least the two of us respected each other enough to know that you were doing what you thought was right, I was doing what I thought was right, but it's like I say, we had that respect. And I think that might be what's kind of missing here, is that people don't have that respect and understand that, hey, I'm doing my job, you're doing your job, and when you get in the public realm, you have to understand that once in a while you are going to get kicked. And if you have a thin, and if your skin is so thin that you can't take that, then maybe you shouldn't be doing what's going on. And you can't take everything personally.
As long as they don't make it personal. And,
Right,
I can
right.
tell you from
And they
personal
have, yeah.
experience
But-
that they have crossed the line, and not just with myself, but honestly, me personally, I can tell you, wowie. But I have seen things that they have written about county board members, the county executive, that have gone beyond not even good taste, but good journalistic integrity, that have gotten so personal. Hey, you want to beat me up for a stand on an issue, or you think that I'm a demagogue, or whatever it is that you think I'm doing, I'm fodder. That's part of the public life. But you know, you don't call people liars and phonies and cheats. And I mean, unless you can document that somebody has done something significantly wrong, then by all means, not only should you print it, but you should be pressing charges. But my big concern is that I think when you have this discourse back and forth, and you know, they have the power of the press, you know, buy an ink by the barrel, that whole jazz. What it has done is it's got to make it tough for somebody like you or any other county board member when you go out to the public and you say, I'm your county board supervisor, and people go, oh, Winnebago County? I mean, do you get that? I mean, do you feel, you know, is there a sense of almost shame or embarrassment sometimes because of the way some of these stories are coming across? Or is it maybe just I used to feel that way because they would make you feel so foolish, and a lot of it was not real accurate?
Well, do I feel? No, I don't feel shame, because basically what I do is I use that as an opportunity, as an educational opportunity, and in essence to, you know, if you know, they said black was white, but in reality white was black, you know, then it gives me an opportunity to sit down and say, hey, Cheryl, you know, well, no, this is really the situation here, and everything else. And getting back to one of your comments about how people need to get, you know, that we need to, our public needs to get more involved in the, I'm not saying they need to get involved in the minutia of a budget book that's this thick, but that, you know, instead of just doing the 30,000-foot flyover, you know, maybe get down around 10,000 feet and take a little, you know, a deeper look. One of the issues is the airport, okay, and we often hear, let's sell it to the EAA for $1, okay? Well, one of the things that many people don't understand about the airport is that part of the way that we have grown that airport is through grants that we've gotten from the federal government and from the state. Now, those grants were used to expand runways, put taxiways in, you know, basically build the facility up to make it better. Well, the thing is that if we turn the lights out and close the door and lock it up, those grants become due and payable. And the last I heard, they were around, it was around $20-some million.
Yeah, it's pretty steep.
Now, so the thing is that as everybody looks at that, again, as they look at the airport and they see, you know, they see EAA out there, which is tremendous for the community. I don't think anybody will argue what it has. It's really helped put Oshkosh on the map. People only look at the west side of the airport. But let's go look over at the east side of the airport. On the east side of the airport, you have the Spanbauer Center, Fox Valley Technical Institute, which has, you know, great aviation programs. They're, you know, teaching people to power frame, or, you know, airframes, power, avionics, all that type of stuff. Right next door to the Spanbauer Center, we have Basler turbo conversions. Okay, I know Tom White's probably going to, you know, give me a call when I get this wrong, but I think that it's around 50 to 70 jobs that are out there. Okay. On the east side of the airport over there, you have Steve Myers from Myers Aviation, which basically repairs airplanes. You have Jeremy and John Manette out there, Sonics Limited, which makes kit airplanes. Bruce and Ray Botterman of New View Technologies, who just a couple of months ago were given the Aviation Business of the Year award in the state. We now have this brand new hangar that was built out there, this corporate hangar. And so you know, people look at, they see the articles in the Northwestern, they read some things that some people have printed about the EAA's, you know, their attendance figures being cooked and all of this other stuff. And they read that, and they take that as gospel, instead of going out and really calling a member of the board and saying, hey, you know, really, what's the story about this? But it's up to us as board members to educate the public, and I do that at every opportunity I can, just to let people know this. And you know, coming on this show, obviously now there's some people who may not have heard this before that are now going to understand this.
Sure.
You know, I am on the aviation committee. I think that airport is a jewel that this community has. And what I like to describe the airport as is a industrial park that happens to have a runway going through it. Commercial aviation, to use a mixed transportation metaphor, that train's left the station and has chugged around the bend and it's not coming back. But there's a whole lot of other things that we can look at to get the airport out there. The state recently passed this tech zone legislation.
Right.
Let's work with the state and try and get some tech, maybe create a tech zone out there. One of the things that I'm in the process of exploring is can we get an international trade zone out at the airport? An international trade zone would allow the airport to bring in goods from out of the country, import goods, duty-free. Now, what would that do for a business? That does a heck of a lot, because there are some items that come in that have a tremendous duty. Let's focus on that, and let's you know, and it's, you know,
If you bring them in duty free, that doesn't affect our jobs here locally. Because here's the thing: we've lost way too many.
But yeah, let's bring them in duty free. But let's get some businesses out here that can do this. That can let's get some businesses
jobs.
in.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the airport,
I was just going to say the
all right.
same thing. We were like,
Okay. Yeah, you're like, okay, time out. All right.
well, earlier this year we lost Airport Director Duncan Henderson and County Executive Jane Vandehei appointed as an interim Airport Director
Ruth Elliott.
Yeah. Who is she? Where did she come from? How's that going? And
Ruth is
where's
the funny thing.
at?
Ruth is a capable person. Ruth was actually the the administrative assistant out at the airport. However, Ruth trained Duncan Henderson. Ruth trained Rich Sokol, and Ruth was here when I think it was Blair Conrad before that. So Ruth knows what's going on out at the airport. Okay.
I guess so.
So we're in good hands with that right now.
maybe we should just keep
Excuse
Ruth and
me.
forget about all the other nonsense.
Well, you know, I don't know if she'd want the job or not.
Capable woman at the helm.
Yeah,
That sounds good to me.
Now, and from what I understand, that the executive has appointed a committee, and that the hiring committee, so to speak, is going to be Ms. Vandehei, Mark Nielsen, who is the chairman of the aviation committee, Dave Albrecht, and I think his membership is because he is the chairman of the property and finance committee, and then Mr. Bao, the human resources director, and then they're bringing in one other person from the state or whatever. Now, I think that's all well and good, fine, but you know, one of the things that I would like to see is someone who is involved in aviation with a business type background as well, because I think what we need to do is my opinion of what we need out at the airport as far as a director is, with the airport the way it is now, I don't think we need an airport manager, so to speak, in essence, someone who can manage an airport for commercial purposes, like we would have up at Outagamie County. What I would look for is what my thoughts would be is that what we need is someone who is capable of marketing the airport, who understands business concerns, who can go out, prospect business, go out and sell this fine facility that we have, and to work with the tenants. I'm sure that you've all seen the reports about some of the frictions between the tenants group and Mr. Henderson and everything else. And you know, in all things, there's always two sides to an issue, okay? But you know, we're all in this together, and instead of working across purposes, let's work together. So, you know, let's get somebody who can market, who has some business experience, who happens to maybe also understand some airport operations. because that airport can just be a growth engine for the Winnebago County and the area. I mean, the whole Boeing thing that was just discussed a few months ago, that was, you know, that was, you know,
crapshoot, if you want.
Well, let's put it this way, that was wishful thinking. I mean, you know,
it wasn't even wishful thinking. It was ridiculous. It was
Pie in the
actually
sky.
it was so. It was delusional.
I think it was
thinking.
I think it was just some people trying to get their name in the paper
Yes.
saying, look, this
I
is
mean,
what we're doing.
when
but
you need a
but at least
seaport
the one thing good about it is that it did, not that we were known throughout the state, you know, that Oshkosh, I mean, I think when you say Oshkosh people, I mean, even if I travel someplace, you know, I say, well, you know, you're talking to somebody and they say Oshkosh, you go Oshkosh. Oh, you mean where all the airplanes go? You know, it's either Oshkosh, Bagosh, Oshkosh, Trucker, where the airplanes are. So, but the one thing that it did is I think it opened up a lot of people out in the state. It opened their eyes to see what we have here. And now, let's capitalize on that. Let's go out and take advantage of it. So, and that's one of the reasons why over the summer I worked with Chamco and a few other people and Team Oshkosh. And what we did is we went out one day and just basically we got people from Fox Valley Tech, we got the Chancellor from UW Oshkosh, we got Wisconsin Public Service, we got members of Chamco, we got, in fact, Mr. Wolank came with us. And what we did is we just went out and to some of the vendors out there and we put a packet, everybody brought their own little piece of information, we put a packet together, went out and shook hands and said, hi, you know, that we're here and that we just want to, you know, give you this information in case you want to expand your business or whatever. You know, if you're looking at relocating or expanding, just keep us in mind and everything. And by bringing all these people together, what we were doing, in fact, the group that I went out and talked with, the first person that we talked to, they are actively looking at, right now they're working with the university's small business partnership or small business community programs or whatever, I can't remember the name, it escapes me now, sorry Sue. But they're working with them and possibly what we could be, and you know, crossing our fingers, maybe at EAA next year that this company, they're currently in Switzerland, they make a small kit airplane. What they're looking at is possibly next year around EAA we could have a new business locating here. Now what did that? Well, it was actually going out and getting to these people. You know, instead of sitting back and waiting for the phone to ring, that's not how you're going to grow a business. You know, if you wait for the phone to ring, it's not going to happen in today's climate. So we went out and we proactively did this. Then the other thing is when we were talking to this person, they had some questions. And I was with Chancellor Wells, and the Chancellor was basically saying, well, we have this, our business school has marketing consulting that we can help you with, and that we can help you with this, and we can do this. We had Doug Pearson from Chamco. Chamco is now involved, and you know, so Doug can bring together financing and things like that. So working together and expanding our boundaries beyond just what the county can do, this is how we have to, you know, what we need to do. We hear it in government nowadays that they say, you know, we need governments to work together. Well, I think what we need to do is get government working with business, government working with the community, government working with just the private citizens. And if we all get working together, I think a lot of good things can happen.
Sure.
One of the things that you had talked about earlier, Tom, was when Duncan Henderson was there, there was talk of friction and cross purposes with some of the tenants out there. One of the things I know I heard a lot about with the airport, with all the changeovers and commercial airlines going out of the area was people really felt as though we were giving the leases away for little to nothing. They didn't feel as though EAA was paying their fair share for the lease of the property, which is obviously equally as valuable to them as it is to us while they're using it. And I know that there was some concerns that from the leasors or leasees out there that they felt as though they should be getting a better deal because there's really nothing going on out there, so this should be pretty cheap going. Duncan felt as though his responsibility was to protect,
was to create as much revenue as he could.
to create revenue, because he had a responsibility as a department head to make sure that it was a self-sustaining entity and we weren't giving away the farm. To that end, what's going on with Orion? they were supposed to be building a 10,000 foot hangar, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something to that
Yeah.
effect. I don't see it.
I don't
Is
know.
it out there or is it hiding? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you can hide a hangar, but nowadays you just never know.
All right, before I answer, there's some people out there that think I have it in personally for Orion, and I do not have that at all. I don't have that at all. The fact of the matter is that originally when all this came forward, one of the things that came out of it came before the board is that the county board was asked to basically build a $1 million hangar that was going to be leased back at some very, very good rate and everything else like that. Well, what I looked at is I did not support that, because when I looked at it and I looked at the exposure to the taxpayers, it was not worth the risk of exposing the taxpayers to that. That said, I'm glad that Orion moved here. I mean, they told us they were going to come down here. They were going to run a first-class facility. From what I understand, so far what they've got out there, everything is top-notch. I've seen it in the terminal. It's all top-notch. But where the hangar is, I don't know. I don't know.
So is the funding still hanging out there?
There is no
mean,
funding. They
were supposed to do it on their own,
They were
correct?
supposed to do it on there. Is basically according to the lease that they were supposed to, within a year of the lease, build a 10,000 square foot hangar to locate their business. But a lot of that was predicated upon the fact that there were minimum standards. Well, we come to find out that even though we were operating under these we thought we were operating under these minimum standards, apparently the county board 10, 12 years ago never approved these minimum standards. So there's no way to really hold it, even though the lease says that by this time you have to, by this date you have to have built a hangar. According to the county executive and the corporation council, even though the lease says that, there's no way that we can
Enforce
we
it.
can
So
have
that's
that
their
done.
loophole.
And so the thing is I hope they build their hangar. I would love to see it out there, but where it is, I don't know.
So how long of a lease do they actually have, Tom? Sorry.
I think
and just
so
everybody knows, we're asking him these questions on the fly. He had no idea what we were going to hit him with.
Generally, I think it's like it might have been a 20. It could somewhere between 10 and 25 years. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is.
So for an extended period of time,
For a period
they
of
don't
time.
have to do anything other
According-
than what they're doing right now, just
Correct.
by virtue of these standards. Now, what would happen if the standards were implemented? Would they be grandfathered in?
I don't think they would, because the lease was, in essence, what would happen is that would be kind of, in medical terms, that would be a pre-existing condition.
Okay, so
Because
they'd
the
be
lease was signed under,
grandfathered to old
it would
standards
be
or
whatever, yeah,
non-existing
yeah.
standards.
But you could then, as the lease came up for renewal, then that could be built back into the lease.
Implemented.
And case, as you were talking about the some of the frictions and things like that, the new corporate hangar, it actually took longer to negotiate the lease with the county than it did to build that hangar. And I think that in my mind, I think the administration of the airport put every roadblock up in front of that hangar and did everything possible to not get that hangar done.
Why would you
And-
say that?
Well, because in talking with the parties that were involved, I understand that in a meeting with the parties, and this would be Mr. Pearson and then Phil Martini, who is with this,
The
and
executive.
then Bruce and Ray Botterman, who were involved in it. At one point, Mr. Henderson, and again, this is I was not there, but I've heard this from
The
many
chatter.
sources, that Mr. Henderson flat out told them, why don't you take your project up to Outagamie County? Now, if we have an airport that's hurting for business and trying to expand that airport, that's not the type of attitude we need to have.
not
Now,
hardly.
and I understand Ms. Vandehei was in that meeting as well, and she says that there's another that's not the true story. Well, if the story is true, and if I'm looking at it, if I were a business person and I was sitting in a negotiation, which I am a business person, if I was sitting in a negotiation, and one of my subordinates basically told one of my customers, we don't want your business, I would say, excuse me, we're going to take a little break, and I would have walked back in the room alone. But
was there one of the things that I was really perplexed about, because I wasn't so sure how I felt about this hangar either. Number one, there seemed to be an awful lot of secrecy involved because we weren't supposed to know who the person was.
that was because of the person. That was because, and we all know who it was. It was Mr. Martini.
We now know.
Because basically, Mr. Martini felt that his name did not need to be involved. Mr. Martini has done tremendous things for this community. Mr. Martini was there when Mr. Martini was the one who helped fund the old Southside Library into the new Boys and Girls Club. Phil did not want any of the accolades, did not want anything. He felt that the fact that just that he was involved was enough. And the funny thing is getting back, it gets back to the Northwestern. The funny thing is the Northwestern, on I think it was a Monday, they write an editorial and they basically bring up what you said, oh, there's all this secrecy and that we
Makes
needed
everybody
blah, blah,
real
blah.
nervous.
Yeah, but you know what happens? That afternoon, Phil Martini and Doug Pearson went down to the Northwestern's office and basically, in essence, Phil walked in and said, "It's me, is that good enough for you?" What happened Tuesday morning? Northwestern came out with an editorial going, "Oh, it's Phil Martini. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh, now, and the thing is this: is it's like I say, why did we need to know? All that we needed to know was the fact that there was no county money involved. There was no exposure to the taxpayers at all. The money was there. The financing was there.
But
this
no
project
special
was moving
deals,
forward. No special deals.
special
They were
deals.
because the lease rates are set by ordinance.
And see, that's what people need to know.
The lease rates are
Because when
set
there's
by ordinance.
When there's all this secrecy, the first thing that clicks into your mind is, okay, somebody's getting a little bit better a deal because
No,
they
you
know
can't.
who it is.
You-
But see, nobody knew that. That has never been printed in a story. And had the Northwestern done due diligence and said, while we don't like the fact that there's these, meetings where nobody's really being identified, here's the thing. There's no county money involved. The rates are set in stone, so we already know that whoever this is going to have to follow the same rules, same regs, same price structure as Joe Blow from our community.
Anybody else, and basically, that hangar is paying the same rate as Orion is paying for their. There's different rates for the terminal. There's different rates for grass. If it was grass, there's one rate for that.
Sure.
If it's a paved ramp, there's another rate for that. But if you have a lease out there and Oshkosh Corporate Hangars came in, they were paying the same amount that you were.
Depending on our location.
Depending on your no, just depending on what the facility is.
Okay.
If it's a paved ramp, it was 15 cents a square foot. If it was grass, undeveloped, it was 11 cents a square foot. Whether it was here, there, or whatever, and if it was for me, it was 11 cents a square foot for grass, it would be 11 cents for you,
Okay.
it would be 11
And
cents
see,
for you.
that's important stuff for people to know, and that is the kind of stuff that doesn't get printed, and that's where the disservice is, and that's where those, those of us who do have that, shadow government thing, because I've been around long enough to know that there's the power players, and then there's the power players. But
I have a question, because we're running
Go.
out of time here.
Wow.
Getting back to minimum standards,
Yeah.
which is kind of the problem with the lease apparently with Orion. What is happening with the minimum standards?
Minimum standards currently, there's a consultant group that has come forward with some minimum standards. I think they're going to be presented to the Aviation Committee at one of our next meetings. Then they're going to come forward to the county board. I had asked Chairman Nielsen to bring the old minimum standards forward to basically say, look, we had operated under these for a period of time, so why don't we bring them forward? Let's put them into, let's codify them. Let's get them into action now. This way, because basically what minimum standards do is it protects the airport in that it doesn't allow. It's what it is. It's a minimum standard. In order for you to do business here, this is what you have to live up to.
Sure.
And basically, it keeps somebody from. Good example would be from just coming in with a tanker truck for EAA, pumping gas, and leaving. Okay, so it protects the county. So what I asked the chairman to do was bring these old standards forward. Let's codify them, even though we know these other ones are coming forward. Let's at least bring these through and get them on the books and move forward. Well, the argument that I got, it never happened because we're going to be bringing these other standards forward shortly, and we don't want to confuse the board with these other, with why did we do this now and we're doing this, a short time later. But
Well,
by
just
bringing
as
the old
long as
ones
somebody
forward.
stays on top of it, because you don't want things falling through the cracks.
Correct.
Like they did with.
But right
with
now, there's
Orion.
nothing to stop anyone from coming out to the airport and
With a
and
tanker
basically.
truck.
and doing whatever they want to do.
Well, one of my problems is you talk about these standards, but has your master plan ever been approved?
There was a master plan that was approved sometime back. It was before I got on the board. There's now a new master plan that is being developed, and that will be done.
So do you think maybe that's where some of the problem with any person that comes in to sell this entity, meaning the airport, you don't have a master plan, that you have an old master plan.
That focused on commercial, yeah. And
so your new master plan isn't there, and it's been being worked on for a long time.
It's been about a year, and they're back. They're working on it now.
So maybe the standards in the master plan can actually come together.
That's exactly what it is. And the way I foresee the master plan, I think, is the master plan is the document that I always use the term, what do we want to be when we grow up?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be wrong to hire an airport manager until that plan is done.
So
because what may happen is because really when you think about it, we have the master plan now, and in essence it's your job description is A, B, C, D. Well, we hire somebody now, 6 months from now or whenever, when we get the new master plan down, well, now your job description is X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
And maybe what will happen is that person may say, no, I signed on for the, and there's all that.
Not only that, but the idea is, my concern, you just did this new hangar with Phil Martini and a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you continue to build out there when you don't know where you want to go?
That's
you don't
the whole
have
thing
the master
is
plan.
That's the thing, that's one thing that we need to do, and I've been saying that all along with my tenure on the
so
aviation
you can't
committees.
keep slopping stuff out there haphazardly.
And unfortunately, that's what happened in the past.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
in essence to generate revenue.
Yeah.
We'd put anything wherever we could. Okay, you want to build a hangar? Great. We'll put
but
you
actually, you just did that with Phil Martini's hangar because you don't have the master plan in place. It's really close to 20th Street. And so basically you plop this thing in there because the master plan has not been approved.
But you can't, but the thing is that, remember, you can't, because it's on the airport, you can develop it, but you're going to have to keep within certain things. You're not going to be able to put a restaurant or whatever out there. Now the Hilton is different because that's not directly on the airport property, but where that particular building is, that had to be aeronautical. And so it was a good purpose. Yeah, you could make the argument that there is no master plan, you're just putting things down. But the other thing is at the present time, you're also looking at the fact that you had somebody coming forward that is putting $1.5 million worth of taxable basis into the county, and it was a good thing. It's currently 50% rented. They are now looking at, and I know that they're actively marketing that. As soon as those four bays are entered, basically, they want to expand and do things like that. Yes, being on 20th Street, it does kind of limit you. However, it is a good frontage to put on. It's a good place to have that because it's visible from there. And I think any business or manufacturing development that we would do out there, I think would be really good out on 26, because I don't think you would want to expand 20th Street into like manufacturing or whatever, because you're talking about bringing it through that shopping area. Whereas we've now got the new interchange south on 26. You could bring trucks in. You've got immediate access north-south on 26. And to 41, and so we do that. So
well, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that the master plan and all the standards have to be melded together as soon as possible, so everybody's got the vision.
Sure. I want to touch on courthouse security for just a few minutes, and we only have like about 4.5 minutes left. Earlier this year, the county board had approved, at least according to the paper, a multi-million-dollar 12-year security plan. Is that correct?
No, actually what was approved was a small down payment on some security, some panic buttons and everything else. There has been no approval of a long-term plan. What they did though is that with the movement of the sheriff's department out onto Jackson Street on Y, they are installing some panic buttons in courtrooms. They're also installing security cameras, and it's more of a communications type thing.
Was that stuff, Tom, figured into the budget for the jail?
No, it wasn't.
So that was something different than that was approved above and beyond the original price tag?
In fact, that particular resolution, if this is the one that I remember, the resolution read that the money would be taken out of the general fund and then replaced by borrowing. Well, what I did is I brought forth, and this was during the property tax thing.
Oh, yes.
And what I basically did was I brought forth an amendment, which died for lack of a second, by the way. to basically say, no, let's not borrow. They were taking it out of the contingency fund and the general fund. And basically what I said is, look, we got the money in the bank now. Why are we taking our credit card out? And it was, and I don't mean, $100 and some $1,000 is a good chunk of money. But, it wasn't like, we were taking millions of dollars out of the contingency fund. But like I say, that died for lack of a second. And, and then shortly thereafter, several board members, start railing about how dare the state tells us about how to spend our money and everything else. So,
because I know when I read that, we even talked about it on one of our shows. I said, what is this all about? The $635,000 plan that had been bandied about for a while, that failed. And now all of a sudden there's an article saying multi-million-dollar over 12 years, and I'm like, wow, what is?
Well, yeah, over 12 years. That's the whole thing. If everything would be approved, that's what it would be.
But it all has not been approved yet.
No, only the first piece has been approved. So.
And now that we have no money, the panic buttons are going to be woo woo woo.
But
bad guys are coming.
I'll ask you guys, how about this board size thing that's out there with the state?
Yes, very quickly, in like 2 minutes,
2 seconds. Where does Greg Underheim get off worrying about the size of the county board? He won't get involved in local politics and helping us cut our budgets because that's a local issue. He doesn't want to get involved in any local issues but the size of the county board.
I don't know, but my thought on it is 38 members big? Yeah, I think it's a little unwieldy. Okay, and many people have said that the board needs to be cut in half. Okay, there's some people that should be off the board and all this other stuff. The concern that I really have with Greg's with this particular piece of legislation is that if the referendum goes through, and I'm not a big fan of referendum, as we know about California and everything else, but maybe I can live with this one, but that the way the districts will be drawn is who draws the districts? The county board chairman and 2 people appointed by the county clerk. So the ability to gerrymander, stack boards, okay, I think that's there. I can live with it. I think that particular bill, I think it needs some more discussion in that when you think about it, it's like the president appointing people to the Supreme Court. Basically a county board chairman, if this referendum would go through, could have significant control of this county for many years after the fact. So it's like everything. I think before a lot of people just look this far. What I like to do on the board is I always try and look here. And it's not a mutually exclusive decision that we're making. How is this going to impact us down the line? Is it worth discussing? Yes, I think it is, but I think it needs more discussion.
All right, and on that, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Boy,
we hope to have you back.
The hour went fast.
Great.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
And thank you folks very much for joining us on this edition of Eye on Oshkosh. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh. Take care.